I can see.
Welcome. Chris Voss.
All right. Thanks for letting me in. Yeah, I was being blocked by the Russians there for a minute.
You know, they're tricky. They're tricky sometimes technologically and otherwise, but we made it work. You're in. We've got things moving along right now. Welcome, everybody. Wow, I see we have got over 100 attendees just filed in just like that in the first 30 seconds of the webinar, and the numbers climbing. It's really great to see a lot of folks here for this. Really excited to talk with our guests today. We have the authors of The Full Fee Agent. We are joined today by Steve Shull and Chris Voss. I've got to say, just a fanboy moment for me is having Chris with us. Chris, you were one of our first keynote speakers at our conference, Curator Excellence, 5-6 years ago, and man, I don't want to step on toes or steal thunder, but I was just so impressed with not just your book Never Split the Difference, but with what you brought to our conference. It's your name still comes up when I talk to our clients about your keynote from 5-6 years ago. So I'm so glad that you've got another book out that is already sharing your wisdom, sharing Steve's wisdom with the real estate community. I'm so honored that you're here with us today. So gentlemen, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure. Very kind words. Much appreciated.
Well, I'm going to be here primarily as a moderator. My name's Steve Smith. I'm the communications manager at Curator. I am joined today and on my best days by the CEO of Curator, Mr. Jimmy Mackin. Jimmy's going to be taking the lead on interviewing our guests. I'm here as an advocate and a representative for our audience. So audience members, if you have questions that you want to ask Chris and Steve, please don't hesitate. Drop them in the chat. I'll try to surface the absolute best ones. I know I've got a sense of what Jimmy wants to ask, so I'll try to find some ones that augment what we're already planning on diving in on. But without further ado, we've got no time to waste because there's a lot of great value to share today. So Jimmy, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve Shull, first off, had an opportunity to read the book this past week and thoroughly enjoyed it. So many takeaways, so many ideas that we're going to be kind of unpacking today. I want to start with sort of maybe giving a little bit broader perspective on the industry and help our industry kind of understand why is this book so vital now? When you think about like the landscape of the industry, when you think about where this industry is headed, why is this book so essential, do you believe, for agents to really consume at this particular time and place?
I've been coaching now for 31 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually been able to watch whole careers, the whole arc of someone starting out in real estate, the middle part,
and
the ending part. I get to see the end. I get to see where all of this leads to.
Mm-hmm.
And most agents operate under this false premise that somehow more is the solution to everything. I just need to sell more homes. And more homes. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't work. Selling more is not the answer. It's how you get there. And one of the things we talk about in the book, in our coaching, it's how you do business is more important than how much business you do.
Mm-hmm.
And without question, I believe that when you decide what your fee is, that is the most important decision you make as a real estate agent. And that decision compounds every single day in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to compound every week, every month, every year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about real estate, it's a blue sky business, meaning there are no limits.
Mm-hmm.
There are no limits to what you can do. I coach people in this business who do over $10 million in GCI. There's no limits here.
Yeah.
However, at the end, if you end up with nothing, a bunch of trophies, a bunch of rankings,
that
doesn't help the cause.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to see, Chris and I want to see agents get paid what they're worth.
Yeah.
And Chris loves to say that real estate agents are the biggest bargain on planet Earth. And we want to make sure that if people want to get paid their full fee, they know how to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect transition here, Chris, or Steve, because I would like to ask Chris a question, sort of follow on with this. Chris, you came to our industry probably around, or really immersed yourself in our industry probably 7 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. And I'm just curious from your perspective, having worked outside of real estate for a very long time and had a rich career in other industries, how has your perception of real estate agents changed over time? Having been on the outside, working with real estate agents as a consumer, to actually now being an inside, working so closely with, thought leaders like Steve, and then just, agents from all walks of life.
Well, yeah, maybe my perception of agents is that they're good people trying very hard to accomplish a great mission, help people and put people in the home of their dreams, and move them on to the home of their dreams. So, I've always believed in the basic good nature of the vast majority of good people. So that really hasn't changed that much about real estate agents. I think I'm a little more appreciative, especially because of Steve, of the challenges that real estate agents face. The high attrition, no barrier to entry means there's a lot of competition, tremendous amount of attrition, difficult job. One of my colleagues, Derek Gaunt, likes to say that every single conversation a real estate agent is a difficult conversation. Like every one. So I think from my experience with you guys and the industry and adapting the Black Swan method into it, and then with Steve really helping us refine it and hone it in specifically for that, I think I'm more appreciative of the difficulty of how really hard it is. The advertising is, be a real estate agent, make a ton of money, as if it's going to fall out of the sky. And it doesn't fall out of the sky. And then the volatile nature of the economic environment, like today, when the pandemic started, like just one quarter after another of a unique unicorn economic conditions. And time somebody thinks it's going to settle out, bang, Russia invades Ukraine, and it has a ripple effect across the world on the economic environment. So I think I've really, with Steve's help, really gained a much greater appreciation of the challenges of the industry, and then how we adapt our stuff into it so that they have a life, they make money. It's not anxiety. It's not a fear-driven business. They have weekends off and still get paid. People that, I helped Steve, he already had in his coaching practice. I mean, how much happier and prosperous they are simultaneously, not sacrificing one for the other. It's just a lot of fun to help people have better lives.
Yeah. Nick Bailey, the CEO of Remax, has a great line there, Chris. He says, agents are going from burnt out to broke. And that is what we're seeing.
That is true. That is true.
And so Steve, on that same topic, you mentioned earlier, you mentioned this idea that, setting your commission and sort of establishing your value early on is so mission critical to your success. Why do you think agents, good agents, talented agents, hardworking agents struggle, or in some respects devalue their service? So you work with some of the people who are doing some amazing work, and as Chris was alluding to earlier, they care, they work hard, they take care of your customers. What is it about our industry that causes us, unlike other industries? Like, I hired a lawyer because I got sued one time, and this lawyer was $1,200 an hour. He did not at any point through the process try to give me a discount. He knew what his value was. But unfortunately, you got agents who are 30 years in the business who have helped hundreds of thousands of clients buy and sell real estate, but they still have this sort of, I don't know, call it imposter syndrome, Steve, but they still, in some respect, don't truly value what they bring to the table. Why is that, from your perspective, having coached some of the best agents in this country?
Well, I think there's two parts of that. One, internally, deep down, and I don't know if it's real estate specific, I doubt it. Most people don't think they're good enough. Their core belief, I'm not good enough. And then that core belief of not feeling I'm good enough causes me to do all sorts of things to try and get people to like me. So you have the internal struggle of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, not feeling like you have value. And then this industry, every force imaginable in this industry is trying to turn you into a commodity. And everywhere you turn.
Yeah.
And the root of all evil in real estate is this idea that something is better than nothing. And, that's how agents rationalize. Well, 20,000 is better than nothing, or 50,000 is better than nothing. And they rationalize why they give their money away. And it's mind boggling. I was just on a coaching call with someone just 15 minutes ago. And one of the things that drives me nuts in this industry is agents who agree to, well, if I double end it, I'll do it at 4%. We all know that's standard practice. Who the hell, excuse me, who invented that? Who came up with that idea that I do twice the work and I get paid, less money? I mean, and then she was describing, she's in a deal and it's going to be direct, and she now reduces her fee from 4 to 3%. I'm going, what for? These people don't need your money. That's not why they do it. If someone needs your money that badly to either buy or sell, they shouldn't be buying or selling.
Yeah.
That you should be coaching them out of doing whatever they're doing. So there's just this propensity to give their money away. And then the ultimate thing making agents into a commodity is these rankings that come out. How can you call yourself a top producer in this industry? How can you call yourself a top producer when you discount your fee? If you want to be a #1 agent, then you better be charging a full fee.
Yeah. What would you say to the critics, Steve, who say everybody in my market does it?
Well, that's true across the board. There's not a single agent that we work with who charges a full fee. They're all doing it in a market where everyone's charging 5, and in some markets, even less than 5.
Yeah.
So the idea that everyone else is doing it, when my kids come to me and say, well, the other kids are doing this, or the other parents do this, I don't care. They're not my kids. I'm not their parents. So I don't care what other people are doing. And as an agent, again, this is your livelihood. And when you make 6% your standard, then you have to become a better agent. You can't charge a higher fee and be lousy at what you do. Going broke, that's I'm a 6% agent, but I don't make any money. That we're not promoting that at all. So the idea that I'm going to charge a full fee, it permeates every aspect of my business, and it makes me better at everything I do.
Let me jump in and add 2 cents on the answer to the question. What do you say to somebody who says everybody in my market's doing it? When you engage in common practice, you become common. So you want to engage in a strategy with guarantees that you are common, then you just help yourself become a commodity. You're faceless. You're not a trusted advisor. Simply common. You might as well be the doorman at the restaurant or the car parker and the valet, because that's all you're reducing yourself to by doing that.
Yeah.
That's a powerful sentiment there, Chris. That's a powerful sentiment. When you reduce yourself to common activities, you become common. I know there's a lot of different schools of thought on justifying your value, showcasing it, whether it's in the listing presentation, or sometimes there's going to be a negotiation tactic from the would-be seller that says, well, then show me the 6%, show me where it comes up. I would love to hear your thoughts on that conversation, how to approach that conversation.
Well, let me jump in on this one, then Chris will give his point of view. This was one of the big game changers that Chris introduced into real estate. And let me back up for a second. What happened is one of my clients went to a book signing in Malibu that Chris was at, got the book, gave me the book. And one Saturday afternoon, I decided to read it. And somewhere in reading the book, I had this major epiphany. And that was that you cannot overcome emotion with fact, logic, and reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the guy, I'd been coaching for 25 years at this point. And what I was doing, I was taking all the emotion out of everything and boiling it all down to fact, logic, and reason.
Mm-hmm.
And reading the book was like, boom, I got it backwards. And I threw out my coaching playbook like that. In a moment, when you get the truth, it alters your entire state of being. And so I reached out to Chris, spoke to his son, Brandon, then we got Chris on the phone. And I said, Chris, everything that you talked about in Never Split the Difference applies to real estate 100%. And, I want to take this, your body of work and bring it into real estate. And Chris said, great. And that was about a little over 7 years ago. Fast forward though, to your point, real estate agents, this whole business operates under the false premise that when I go out in someone's living room, that I'm winning or losing business based on my ability to present, based on the information, that somehow the playing field is level. And if I give a great presentation, then I'm going to get the business. The whole industry operates that way. And commission is tied into it. It's a value-based orientation. Let me show you my value. Well, that's not actually how buyers and sellers decide who they're going to work with. It's not about value. It's about who is their favorite. Everyone in life has personal preferences. As human beings, we all have our own personal preferences. And as an agent, you're either lining up with someone's personal preferences or you're not. You have nothing to do with that. You don't determine, what their personal preferences are. And so it's all about, and this is the concept that Chris introduced. We call it the favorite or the fool.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means is when you get that phone call that you're so excited about, we're thinking about selling our home, we'd like you to come out and talk to us. Agents go, yeah, that moment. And then they go spend 2 hours, 4 hours getting ready for that appointment. Then they drive out and then they sit in someone's living room and they talk for 2 hours about their value, all the things I'm going to do for you to demonstrate why you should work with me. And at the end of that presentation, the seller goes, wow, you've given us so much to think about. Let us process and we'll get back to you. And you leave and you're like, what just happened? I have no idea whether they like me, they don't like me, they're going to do business with me. And then I'm on pins and needles for 24 hours, 48 hours a week, however long until you get that phone call. Well, guess what? We didn't have to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to do any of that. What we're coached to now based on this philosophy, and again, it's not about your value. It's not about demonstrating your value. It's about finding out, am I the favorite or am I the fool?
Mm-hmm.
And within 15 minutes or so on a Zoom call or a phone call, if you want to do a phone call, you can find out who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're the favorite, and again, and in that conversation, we're not talking price. We're not talking home preparation. We're not talking marketing. We're not talking how the property is going to be shown. We're not talking how we're going to communicate. We're not talking how we're going to negotiate. We're not talking about how we're going to shepherd them through the escrow process. We're simply finding out, am I the favorite or am I the fool?
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? If you're not the favorite, that makes you the fool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this has really transformed how agents can do business. I have a client in Northern California, in San Francisco, one of the most competitive markets in the
Yeah.
country. In the last 4 years, she's taken well over 100 listings, all from a Zoom call without going to the property. And these are residential, this is, this is not unique stuff.
Yeah.
Price point, 2 million, 4 million, 5 million. She's taken over 100 listings without going to the property at 6%, keeping 3.5%.
Mm.
Now you'll hear that and you'll say, anyone listening, that can never happen. Well, it does.
Hmm.
It's not a unique case. And this is what Chris introduced to the industry with this methodology.
Chris, is it as simple as if you don't know if you're the favorite or the fool, then you're probably the fool? Is it
rounder's logic? If you look around the
table,
table and you can't tell who the mark is, it's
Yeah,
you.
in point of fact, yeah, exactly. Now you got a gut instinct, and and I'll talk about the presentations in a second. But on this point specifically, is people have been slow to embrace. I don't want to give. I got to do my presentation. I work too hard on that. I got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Steve has often asked people to do is like, okay, you don't have to stop doing your presentations now, but just based on our rules, which we'll teach you, let's diagnose in advance which ones you think you're the favorite on, which ones you think you're the fool. Now you track your own data and see how many of the listings you got when you thought you were the favorite. And the number is always very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many listings did you get when based on our diagnosis, you were the fool? Yeah, almost none of them. All right, so what happens then? Like based on math, it's not your presentation. There's no math algorithm out there that backs up that the presentation had anything to do with it, because your gut instinct, your internal computer came up with an assessment, which happens to be very accurate in advance. So now what happens if you say, how much of my life do I get back if I didn't spend all that time on those presentations, if my numbers don't change?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the presentations, when Steve and I first started talking about this, reminded me of a TV show used to be on TV a long time ago, Entourage.
Mm-hmm.
The guys in Entourage are shopping for a new agent. And they go down and they go in for the presentation for the new Hollywood agent. And they sit down and they do this, get the stunning presentation. They say McDonald's, IBM, Pepsi Cola. And then they put the actor's name up, Vincent Chase. We're going to make you a brand and a household name. And they're very impressed with the presentation. They're like, wow, this is awesome. But let's go ahead and see the other presentations anyway. And they sit down the next one, completely different agency. And the agents put up slides that say McDonald's, IBM, Pepsi Cola.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make you a household name. And they kind of look at each other and go like, that was a lot like the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go talk to the third guy anyway. They sit down to the third guy and they put up a presentation, McDonald's, Pepsi Cola. And then in the middle of it, these guys go like, that's enough. This is pathetic. You're no different than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time and money that agents put into their presentations, where did they learn it? Best practices in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Are they really best practices or are they common practices?
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how hard they worked on that presentation, the reality is it was pretty much exactly like everybody else's presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And based on the math, you didn't win or lose based on that presentation. You won or lost based on other factors.
Let me give a specific example of this, the math. One of my clients, it's a partnership last year. They went on 150 listing appointments. That's a lot of appointments. Everyone in the audience would probably go, man, I wish I could go on 150 listing appointments.
Yeah.
They got 75 and they lost 75. There's no way that can happen if it's based on the presentation. There's no way 50% of the people liked it and 50% of the people didn't like it. It'd be more 80-20, one way or the other.
Yeah.
People really liked it or people didn't like it. But the idea that it's split right down the middle, that just shows it's not about the presentation. It's about, am I the favorite or am I the fool?
Mm-hmm. Is there you both work with a lot of salespeople. Is there a best practice that you'd like to see abolished in sales? Chris, you gave me the head tilt, so I'm going to start with you.
Start out by starting by making your pitch. Regardless of what your value proposition is, regardless of what you think it is, it does not align perfectly. If the other side has a value proposition for you, your 10 points do not line up with their 10 points. So what you have as number 7 might be their number 1. Now you launch into 1, 2, and 3. Before you finish 2, they've tuned you out because you're talking about nothing that matters to them. You're not getting at what's most important to them. And it takes 7 to 10 seconds as a general rule for somebody to tune you out. And if you did really good in 7 to 10 seconds, you got another 30, and it gets bigger after that. But you started out with something that they don't care about. By starting with your pitch, you've done no diagnosis of what's mattered to them. And on top of that, they noticed that you didn't bother to take the time to see what's important to them. You treated them as a commodity. And nobody likes to be treated as a commodity. So starting out by making your value proposition, your value pitch might be one of the worst things you could possibly do.
What most salespeople
information.
Well, what most people, when they hear you say that, Chris, would say, well, when I'm doing my initial sales consultation, or I'm having my initial conversation, I might ask a question like, what's most important to you? And we know that consumers, especially early on in the process, are guarded in many ways. They're not really willing to reveal maybe they don't even fully understand what their internal motivators are. When you think about uncovering the value proposition, whether that's through a Zoom, through a phone call, through a face-to-face meeting, what is your advice and guidance on that to really understand where their perception or where their value really lies, or what they value in this case?
Well, and here's also the problem with that. By definition, is a great question. It's a what question. It's not just open-ended. It starts with what. Here's the problem. How many agents ask that question?
More than one, right?
How common is that question?
Mm-hmm.
So even a well-designed question, once it's, quote, best practice, it's now most likely common practice.
Mm.
And so consequently, you just ask them the same question everybody else did.
Yeah.
Now, you might be a great listener, and you might actually listen to what they say. But just on sheer numbers, how many great listeners are there out there? 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 are not. So what is the person you're interacting with been conditioned? You just asked them a question that everybody else asked. Now, they've also been conditioned that you ain't going to listen to the answer. Because none of the other people did. It's a little bit like the battered child syndrome. Battered child's going to duck as soon as an adult raises their arms. It doesn't matter that the adult is trying to hug them with a genuine warm embrace. The problem is the people that are not listening, and listening is a top tier skill, just based on the numbers. They've been asked that before, and they've been conditioned that you're not going to listen to the answer. So they're a little bit bad. And that what a great question is in your initial conversation is, how do you get into simultaneous rapport building and information gathering instantly and not do what everybody else is doing?
Why is this? Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
That question you asked really gets to the heart of what we're coaching. So the salesman says, what's most important to you? And they're asking that question, why? So they can sell into it, right? Well, this is what you need, and this is what I'm going to do to meet that need. This is where we go 180. We want to find out what's important to them. However, what we need to do, and this is the missing piece, this is the piece in sales that no one teaches. We need to make them feel understood, to acknowledge what they're thinking and feeling. So it sounds like what's really important to you is X, Y, and Z. Am I missing anything? Did I leave anything out? And what you're targeting is a that's right response. You want them saying, that's right. That's exactly what we think. That's exactly what we feel. That's right. And when you hear that's right, now you know they get that you get what they're thinking and feeling. And when they get that, there's actual a chemical release in the body. There's actually a physical reaction. Oxytocin and serotonin, two chemicals get released. Oxytocin is a bonding chemical. It bonds, you to them to you. It's also promotes truth telling. Serotonin, and Chris, and I hope I'm getting the science right. Serotonin makes them feel satisfied, less demanding. And when they feel understood, when you acknowledge what they're thinking and feeling, you'll actually see them relax. And until they feel understood, they can't hear anything you're saying. And we call this the missing piece in sales, the ability to make someone feel understood. And this is the real difference maker. It's not about demonstrating value as much as it is making them feel like, hey, you get what they're going through. You understand. Because remember, with every buyer and seller, there are dreams and hopes on the line. Those dreams and hopes are not based in fact, logic, and reason. Those dreams and hopes are based on what they want, and they want what they want because they want it or they need it. They're not looking at the facts. They're not, trying to be logical. It's emotional. It goes back to, again, you can't overcome emotion with fact, logic, and reason. And I was on a call yesterday with Chris. We do a monthly call for agents. And Chris made the point, you can't argue someone into a different perspective. And that's what agents are trying to do all the time. Don't feel this way over here. Let me tell you why you should feel this way. And here's all the facts, logic, and reason to support why you should feel this way.
I've got a pitch for you guys, because I want to get your reaction to this. But before I give you my pitch, because I think you're both tapping into this basic idea that until someone feels understood, until that person feels heard, until that person feels like that you get it, what they care about, it, no matter what you say in your presentation, it's gonna fall on deaf ears.
That's right.
So I want, that's right. That's right. So I want
Look at you, Jimmy, you're getting a that's right out of Steve. Nice.
That's it. I love it. Well, then that's gonna, if I get a that's right out of you, Chris, and then they'll make the podcast for me. Well, here's my question before I give you my pitch. Why is listening so hard?
Here's my take. I'll be interested in Chris. We all want to be understood. So as a salesperson, what am I doing every day? I'm trying to be understood. So I don't want to listen. I'm telling them what I'm thinking and feeling because I want them to understand me. So we just need to use that same psychology, because as human beings, it's universal. We all want to be understood. And so the way you listen on a presentation is far more impactful than anything you say.
Yeah, I would say it's probably several reasons. First of all, we don't see any good examples of it around. I mean, there isn't a negotiation book out there that doesn't list listening as an advanced skill. Everybody wants to think if I'm not talking, I'm listening. If I'm silent, that equates to listening, or it equates to the other side feeling heard. Not true. Now, what examples do we have around us? One of the things that I hate, like in almost every Hollywood movie and every TV show, somebody's struggling with something. The character looks at him and says, I know what it's like to lose too. I've been there. That happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they lay something out similar. And on the movies and a TV show, the other person just tears up and they go, oh, thank you. You understand me. And that is not, and so we're conditioned because we don't see good examples. Somebody on a TV show or movie show says, wow, that's how you listen, relate to them,
Mm-hmm.
Tell them how something like that happened to you, and they'll collapse in your arms and a bond will be struck. Now you try that in real life and either you get nothing or the other person gets angry. This old, everybody feels like you're in a can you top this thing? Like, I'm going to tell a story, something that mattered to me. And you're going to come up with a story that you're about yourself that you're more fascinated with. And pretty soon I can leave the room because what you envision to be common ground is not. And you're off on a tangent on your own experience. So that it's just so hard to actually find great examples of great listening. Nobody knows what it really looks like.
This is part of the challenge in general, is that the concept of best practices become adopted, and then you just go down the checklist. They become a facsimile of having the real conversation, so that at a certain point, human psychology tells us, oh, if you mirror their body language, they'll feel safer with you. Yeah, if you do that on purpose, at a certain point, people will recognize you're doing that. If you're asking the questions in a perfunctory way and simply writing down the answers and not synthesizing the information and saying it back to them in your own unique understanding to get that's right, then it's a good practice that you did, but you are not demonstrating understanding. So now I think it sounds like a lot of this is, it's not necessarily abolishing the best practices. It's remembering why they became best and recognizing that other people are, whether it's laziness, whether it's miscomprehension, that they're not following through to the actual intent of these things that have become best practices.
I completely agree.
So what I heard you say, and thanks for sharing that, Steve Smith. What I heard you say there, what both you and Steve alluded to, was that there are no good examples of listening in the wild. Meaning you can't, it's hard to like, if you see an athlete on the field, you can mimic their behavior. If you see a salesperson closing a deal, you can sort of, you listen to the phone call, you can mirror their closing. But listening is something that is intrinsically just difficult to learn through osmosis, I guess is what I'm saying. My follow-on question there is, how do you know? There's a great Mark Twain quote, which is, it ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. How do you know what is a sign if you are a bad listener? Like, what is if we got a couple hundred people watching now, we'll have thousands of people watch the replay. How could you diagnose yourself in a minute that you're actually a bad listener? And this is a skill that you really.
I got a great answer for that. You're moving
Fire away, Steve.
your lips. You're moving your lips.
Okay.
You're moving your lips. You can't learn while you're talking. And agents think they have to have a response to everything, and they have to have it immediately. And so they're not actually listening. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. And you can't make people feel understood if you're thinking about what you're going to say rather than trying to intuit what they're actually thinking and feeling. And then you're going to come back to them and say again, so it sounds like, we call these labels.
Yeah.
It sounds like this. It seems like that. It feels like this. And again, you're labeling to them what you think they're thinking and feeling. And you don't have to get it right. In fact, if you get it wrong, we call that a mislabel. People love to correct you. It makes them feel good. Like if I say, it seems like you're having a great day, and you go, great day, I'm having an awful day. That actually makes them feel good when they get a chance to correct another human being. So it's not about that we have to get it right in terms of what they're thinking and feeling. It's that you're, again, working to make them feel understood, and they will correct you if you're off.
Okay. No, it makes sense. And I think in some instances, when I hear you say all of that, Steve. I think in some instances, inexperienced agents or agents who don't understand their value have a tendency to lean towards getting into that sort of, value overload. They start dumping, here's what we're going to do. And they feel like the more they talk, the more that they're going to convince someone to actually make a decision. In the book, you both bring up one of the most interesting things that I think I've read in I wouldn't call a sales book, but in just a book about communication, about this idea of using small admissions to build trust. So we're going to get into that in a moment here, because I think it's something that agents right now are very afraid of, because there's this tendency to be overly positive and overly optimistic. And you talk a lot about this in the book. And I think it's something that's so on point for our industry. But let me give you my pitch first. We talked earlier about the importance of understanding what their value prop is. So if I heard you guys correctly, this is maybe one of the most important things to get right in any sales conversation, is to pinpoint what it is they actually value, as opposed to going through the list of things that you think they're going to value. So the question that we asked earlier, which is, what's most important to you, is a good question on the surface. But as you were alluding to, Chris, you said that's, if it's a common question, it's common practice, and people are not going to respond well to that. So here's my pitch. Would it make sense to flip that question? And instead of asking what's most important to you, when you are having a conversation with a potential seller, you may say something along the lines of, hey, listen, this is, the market is, as you can probably already tell, the market is very challenging right now. There's not a lot of homes for sale. When you sell your house, finding a new home is not an easy thing to do, given the current, interest rate environment. I'm just curious, but, through this process, what is the thing that you fear the most? So that's a rough, like I'm giving you this is a pitch. It's not totally refined, but instead of asking what's most important to you, would you maybe guide agents listening right now towards talking about the thing they fear most, as a way to uncover the thing that is most important to them in a way that doesn't sound like every other agent?
I think that's really interesting. I think that's really interesting. I'd be curious to hear what Steve's response is.
Yeah, you're dead on. Okay. The biggest motivator in life is fear of loss. And what agents are doing all day long is pitching gain. Going back to what you were talking about earlier, what do agents do? They put a positive spin on everything. They edit the truth. They sugarcoat the truth. The last thing they want to ever talk about is things that could go wrong. This is a big part of what we coach people on. We call it laying out the landscape. Here are all the things you're going to be up against. We use this psychology, this way of thinking all the time. The reasons why you might not work with me are much more important than the reasons why you might work with me. One of the things we bring up right up front for everybody is commission. Okay. Agents are always, when do I talk about commission? And for most agents, they never want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And if they're going to talk about it, they're going to talk about it at the end. And they're going to try and just slide through it and not make it, any motion about it. Within the first 15 minutes, you're going to say to that potential seller, I need to bring up a potential sticking point. And they're going to go, what's that? My fee. What's your fee? I'm a full service, full fee agent. My professional fee is 6%. I keep 3.5%. I pay the agent representing the buyer 2.5%. In markets where you can split it that way. And we encourage it. Some markets you can't do that. Most you can. So we're getting that out on the table as early as we can. Because that goes back to the favorite and the fool conversation. And here's a really big aha for all of you out there. Your fee is not based on your value. Your fee to the potential seller is based on whether you're the favorite or the fool. When
Mhm.
you're the favorite, they're going to pay you your fee.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the fool, it doesn't make a difference what your fee is. Now, when you're the favorite, they may push back once or twice. However, what they're doing is they're just making sure they're not leaving any money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the fool in the game, the objection to fee is very different. Now they want to make you wrong. Now they're
Mhm.
not just finding out whether they can get it for less. They want to make you wrong. Well,
Mhm.
other agents, don't charge that. What are you going to do for that extra 1%? They're challenging you on, do you really have value? And that's a clue that you may be the fool in the game. And there's one thing that we need to bring up. When we talk about all of this, we talk about it in terms of probability. Everything we coach to is focusing on opportunities where you feel you have an 80% chance or greater of doing business. When you feel like you're the favorite, we expect you to get that business 80% of the time or more. When you're the fool in the game, that's when you have a 20% chance or less.
Yeah.
We make a distinction. We're willing to forego those opportunities. We have a 20% chance. It's not zero. It's 20% or less, but I don't even want to entertain that. We're not trying to convert ourselves from being the fool into the favorite. That's
Mhm.
not good business. In agents, everyone out there tends to think they're chasing every deal as if all business is equal. All business is not equal. There's good business and there's bad business. And we're willing to walk away from the business where we're actually the fool in the game.
Mm-hmm. Chris, your reaction?
Well, first of all, I think he's been a little kind on the numbers. When you're the fool in the game, it's probably less than 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about, what is your life worth? What is your time worth? I think we mentioned already earlier before we came on. I'm in Vegas. I live in Vegas, but I've always used the Las Vegas analogy. Like, what gaming table do you want to be at? Do you want to be at the gaming table where you win 20% of the time? You want to be at the gaming table where you win 80% of the time?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just kind of what it boils down to. Now, you'll get the occasional victory. Just like if you pull that slot machine arm enough times, that baby's going to go off. And you are going to celebrate so much in the moment. You know what? You're going to keep pumping that money right back into that slot machine, waiting for that moment when it goes off again, because the celebration is extraordinary. They got bells ringing, they got sounds, they got lights flashing. They want to hook you on that victory and make you ignore how often you lost. And that's a way to go broke.
Mm-hmm.
So don't mistake the bells and whistles. And so we talked about the science of it, the oxytocin, the serotonin, that sometimes it's artificial, and having overcome this thing can get you to make bad mistakes over again.
Yeah.
There are a lot of agents out there who've gotten really great at doing the wrong things. And so don't confuse that. Just because I've gotten really good at doing it the hard way, that's the best way to do things. And I want to go back again to the sugarcoating, editing the truth thing.
Yeah.
One of the great lines that Chris introduced that just really made a difference and people struggled with so much in the beginning is, I've got some really bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Agents hate to deliver bad news. Am I wrong about that? We've got some good news and we've got some bad news. Which do you like to hear first? Agents are always trying to put a silver lining on everything. This line, it changes your business. It takes so much stress away to be able to say to somebody, I've got some really bad news.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? You're really not going to want to hear this. What? This is going to break your heart. And whatever you deliver after that is a relief. They are going, thank goodness That's all, no problem. And because they go to death. That's where everybody goes when you say, I've got some really bad news. And this line gives any agent the ability to deliver bad news. And guess what? In this industry, often, most of the time, you've got to deliver bad news. It's part of the game.
Especially if you work with buyers. Absolutely. So I don't know why the story has come into my mind, but I think it's relevant to the conversation. And we're going to go rapid fire here because we got a bunch of questions coming in from the audience here, everyone who's tuning in from our community. But I'm thinking of Rick Barry. You know how Rick Barry used to be the famous guy who would throw the underhand free throw, and I think he shot in his career like 90%. And despite the fact that it is like, I guess, proven that style of free throw for taller dudes is much more effective, and you're going to shoot a much higher percentage point. Players are willing to shoot a worse percentage and put their team in jeopardy of losing as to not look awkward and dumb in front of their colleagues. My question is, what is the equivalent of the underhand free throw in sales? What is the really awkward thing that we're afraid to do that if we actually just leaned into could actually generate better results for us than what we're currently doing today, Chris?
Yeah, it's a line that Steve threw out before, which is in the first few minutes of the conversation, the agent saying, I'm a full service, full fee agent, just like that, and going dead silent. Not justifying, not explaining, going dead silent. Because what nobody realizes, it's not doing it. You've just auditioned as a great ambassador for them when you stood up for yourself in a firm and clear, deferential even way, calm confidence. And that sets the tone for everything. And the people that Steve and I are coaching, Steve's doing a massive amount of the coaching. When they start out with that, like right off the bat, instead of fee last, or even outlining all the services, just by saying that right off the bat is extraordinary. And they're scared to do it because nobody else is doing it.
There's another one I'd like to throw in that Chris introduced from the world of hostage negotiation. It's what we call proof of life. And one of the things you're going to do very early on in the conversation, I'm curious of all the agents out there that you could have spoken to, why me?
Yeah. Put them in the position. Yeah.
Then we go back to listening, because now what they're going to tell you is their perception of your value.
Yeah.
And if they say to you, why me? Well, you sold our neighbor's home, and our neighbor's a really close friend, and they said you did an incredible job. And we went on Zillow and we read all your client reviews, and we love what Sally Smith had to say. And then we went on your website and we love the way you market properties on your website. That is a robust response, versus if you say, why me? And they say, well, we got your postcard in the mail, or we were driving through the neighborhood and we saw your sign, or last night we threw a dart at the dartboard and your name came up.
Yeah.
That's a clue that I'm probably the fool in the game.
Yeah.
And then from there, after you do the why me, then you're going to say, and this is a definitive answer, everyone out there. Do you ask whether they're interviewing other agents? Yes. Would I be wrong to assume that you're going to be interviewing other agents? And then you're going to say, who are you interviewing? Why did you pick them? And again, going back to something you said earlier, Jimmy, if they're very guarded well, we'd rather not say, that's a sign I'm probably the fool in the game. If I'm the favorite, they have no problem saying we're interviewing so-and-so, and this is what we're doing. So there are all these clues that have always been there. Agents haven't known what to look for. And then another great piece of dialogue, that'll make people uncomfortable. Would I be wrong to assume that we're going to be working together? Or would I be wrong to assume, and this may be a mislabel, would I be wrong to assume you're probably leaning in a different direction? The earlier you can get that in, it cleans up the space, because they're sitting there, they're dying to say yes or no, you're dying to know. And just put it out there.
So I love those questions. And to your point, Chris, I'm smiling because I think I'm reminded of the book I read many, many years ago, and I'm going to totally forget 90% of it, but I think it's called Eat the Frog by Brian Tracy. He talked a little about this idea of do the hardest thing first. And that's really what the two of you are building on is the question, Steve, why me, is such a showstopper question. Because we got a lot of questions in the comments right now, people saying, do I know I'm the favorite or fool? Well, if they said, well, I've done a ton of research and I've actually already interviewed 3 agents and you were really my choice, you now know you're the favorite. You now know you're in that 80% range of now it's your deal to lose, if you will. But to your point, I just got a postcard, figure I call you up, then you just know you're starting from ground zero here. There's no built-in trust. There's no research they've done. So I love that question. I also love the idea of, and to your earlier point, Chris, about what's the underhand free throw in sales, addressing the difficult things that come up that we usually save to the end or wait until we're asked, pushing those to the forefront is a truly breakthrough idea for most people. And if everyone who's listening right now, I'm sure many of them are doing it exactly like you guys described, or the opposite of what you guys are describing, which is they're waiting until the very end of it. I got a ton more questions.
I'll jump in real quick. There's a chapter in the book. It's called Get the Elephants Out Early.
Yeah.
If there's an elephant in the room, get it out on the table. You know it's there. They know it's there. And the longer the elephant sits there, the heavier it gets. And so one of the core coaching principles is get in front of everything. Get in front of everything. If you have an intuition that they're thinking something or feeling something, get in front of it. It's way more powerful when you say it versus them saying it. When you get it out on the table before they bring it up.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I got a hard stop coming up not too long from now. So I just want to warn you that's coming up.
Yes, we appreciate you, Chris. We'll give you one last question, rapid fire style, Chris, and then Steve will read us out. And this has been fantastic, guys. So last question for you here, Chris, which is when we think about our industry in real estate, one of the things that we really struggle with, and one of the things that I think many agents who are listening right now are afraid of, is this basic idea of how do they not compromise on the 1 yard line? So you got 3 months, you have no closings, credit card debts coming up, right? Yeah, there's 3 other agents that you're interviewing, and this person says, listen, it's a done deal if you cut your commission by 30%. Is this just a matter of them not doing the work up front if they're having those conversations at the end of the process?
Yeah, and it's what a lot of people find themselves in, a position where they've gotten themselves on a gerbil wheel, and how do you get yourself off the gerbil wheel? I mean, it's really got to start from the beginning, and it's a common practice for any entrepreneur going like, next month I need something today. 6 months from now I need something today, and you get in this gerbil wheel. I need it today. I need it today. I need it today. And you are never going to get out of it. Ask yourself if that's what you want the next 20 years of your life to look like. And what was that phrase that you used earlier? You're going to go from miserable to going broke.
Yeah, from burnt out to broke.
Yeah, burnt out to broke. And you're in a downward spiral. And only you are going to get you out of that downward spiral. Yeah. So, when you want to get yourself out?
Yeah, love it.
You're on your way down.
All right. Fellows, this has been amazing. Steve, read us out, my friend.
Seriously, Chris, Steve, thank you both so much for sharing your time and your insights with us. I think it's pretty evident that we'd love to talk to you for another 3 hours. Please, 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 if you don't already have it, I don't think I have to sell you on it now after this conversation. The Full Fee Agent is available wherever books are sold. Do you have a preferred online vendor? Is there a place where you'd like all of our listeners today to purchase The Full Fee Agent, gentlemen?
Wherever they take money.
Wherever they take money.
Amazon is a platform where we've got it on. That's always the best price.
There you go. So I've dropped the link already in the chat. Seriously, thanks again to our guests. Thanks to everyone who came and made this such a wonderful session, 240 plus throughout the session. So thank you again, everyone. Look out for more content from us coming soon. And as Jimmy just dropped in the chat, be sure to give a review on Amazon as well. I got to say, the Audible version is excellent. Steve, great reading on that one. That's how I listened to it. I really enjoyed it.
You put a review on Amazon if and only if it's worth it.
That's right.
Only if it's worth it, though. 5 stars.
I could not say it any better myself, but I think you're going to see a flood of 5 stars. This book is tremendously valuable. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Farewell, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.